Hello, everyone. This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and thank you for being here in Soul Talk. Please don't forget to subscribe and like our podcast. And after that, let me tell you where I'm going to present you with Hamish Niven. I hope I pronounced it right. and, and Hamish is going to tell us a little bit about his story because it's very, very interesting. And you may be passing through that, or you may know someone that is close to you that is passing through addiction. So, Hamish, first of all, thank you so much for being in my podcast, Soul Talk.
Thank you very much as well. Thank you for inviting me. I've been looking forward to chat with you. We've missed each other for all sorts of reasons, so it's really nice to finally be here with you and have a chat with you. So this is great.
Yes, I got sick, so we've been postponing it to finally today. This is the day. Hamish, tell us a little bit about your story, so like that people can comprehend about the word that I used, throw addiction, in there.
Okay, well, in a nutshell, I struggled with alcohol addiction for a long time. I didn't realize it was an addiction. I thought it was I liked drinking, it made me feel confident, and over the years it became a crutch. It became a reason to cope, really. Had a good day, have a drink, had a bad day, have a drink. And it just became a way of life. And as things often do, they start off innocuous, they start off, you can manage them fine. But over the years, it clambered up and it began to take hold of my life. That's the very short story, but it was work, it was play, it was life, it was family, it was where I was living and what I was doing. But alcohol um, it was taking over my life, and it was not allowing me to thrive. It was not allowing me to grow. I was basically the same 16-year-old in a 45-year-old body from the day I started drinking, and it was only once I sobered up I realized that it was doing me a huge amount of damage and stopping me from living a really, an authentic, genuine life. It was killing me, really. It was slowly but surely it was killing me. It was removing choices, it was removing opportunities. And yeah, it was I was on a path to self-destruct.
It is very daring with right now with the economy, how it's going, the politics going around the world. People tend to look for a way out or numb themselves, and they use different methods. It can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be whatever it is, or workaholic also. It can be different ways to distract ourselves from the pain or to observing the things that we. But what make you actually observe that in yourself?
It was a moment of clarity. I realized that I was going to either kill myself or somebody else. I was living in South Africa, so the rules were a little bit more relaxed. I got away with drink driving, not proud of it, but I got away with it for several years. Um, but I realized that drink driving, I wanted to get stopped by the police. I wanted help. I didn't know how to ask for help. Um, And it just got to a stage where I realized that, I'm going to kill somebody and I can't do that. I really, really can't do that, or I can't kill myself. So I realized, I have to stop. I have to get help. And I did the hardest thing I have ever, ever done. I asked for help. And I
Yeah.
asked this guy, I said, look, I think I've got a drinking problem. He wasn't somebody I knew very well. He was an acquaintance. And he sort of looked at me and said, tell me. So I said, look, this is what I'm doing. He said, yeah, it sounds like it. He said, don't worry, I went to rehab 18 years ago. Um, let's go and find you one. And, that's what happened. I asked someone to help me, and I didn't get judged. I didn't get judged for everything that I told him. He just said, "Yeah, sounds like it. Let's go and get you sorted." And that was my turning point. That was realizing that I could actually get help.
Something that the some of the points that you gave me to really was about the shameful moments. And I would like to we talk about a little bit about the shameful moments because we all carry shameful moments. We all do mistakes. We all for different reasons, and we're carrying that. But that becomes a very limiting belief, feeling the shame, feeling the
Yep.
guilt, and that's the detonation for a lot of the stuff that we avoid actually living. And yes, it can convert to addictions, or it can convert to be stay in the marriage that you don't want to be. It can be in any situation, and that happens to everybody because everybody has that. Those are shameful moments, but we're focusing right now in the addictions with the shameful moments that is a limiting belief for in particular cases. How do you deal with that? Because I saw that you went more into the spiritualism, but how do you deal with that in that transition? Because there's a transition at the beginning. There's an end, but the beginning.
It's a really interesting one, and the more I looked at my drinking and why I was doing it, I realized I had found a coping mechanism to help me make sense of stuff, life, growing up, being a child in an adult world, as a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. And everything I had done, I firmly believe that we always do the best we can, whatever it is. And alcohol was a way for me to make sense of stuff. And if I'm doing the best that I can, that alcohol was protecting me. It was protecting me from what I couldn't deal with. So I really believe that any coping mechanism, good or bad, is brilliant. It's not necessarily going to last forever. Drugs don't last forever. Alcohol doesn't. Eating doesn't. Workaholic certainly doesn't. But I cannot shame myself for doing my best. Not behavior wasn't okay. Behavior was atrocious. Um, but I couldn't do any better. I couldn't do better than driving home after work drunk. I couldn't do any better than anything else. And the more I looked at it, as I said, it was a way to keep me alive. Because I know people who've crashed into trees driving drunk, hung themselves. We don't need to list what people have done. Most people know
Yeah.
friends, loved ones who have not managed to survive addiction. Um, but I did, and a lot of people I know did, and that makes me a hero and everybody a hero, and there's no shame in it. And because I decided to not shame myself because I didn't know any better at the time, um, I was able to remove that shame, remove the self judgment, the self criticism, the resentment. I mean, there's still shame, obviously, but I was able to work on it. And that is a super powerful way of stopping beating yourself up, stopping shaming yourself, because shame, as you said, it's insidious, it's awful. That's why you drink. I drink, I got up, promise I won't drink, did, shit, shame. Round it goes. It's that vicious circle of shaming yourself, beating yourself up, breaking promises, more shame, and it just piles up. And it's going to likely to destroy you unless you can work your way out of it. And that's what I did. As I said, I realized I was doing the best that I could. And as I sobered up, that was my new best. And I couldn't beat myself up for what I did. I mean, you don't tick a 2-year-old off for not being able to run and walk and talk, do you? You encourage it. So it's exactly the same. I didn't know better 5, 7 years ago. Now I do, I don't do that.
Do you follow any program in that process?
I did. For some years, I did 12-step programs, so Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and I found them really useful. to a certain degree. I do not like the, hi, I'm Hamish, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not.
That's what I call.
Um, I don't like that. NLP, language is powerful. Words are spells. You can convince yourself to do anything with words. So if you're going to call yourself an addict, an alcoholic, fat, ugly, workaholic, all these things, adrenaline junkie, all these things, you are telling yourself you are not okay and it's not healthy. So I didn't subscribe to that and I left that behind because that dogma really was destructive.
I totally agree with you, and I'm glad that we're talking about this because I am an NLP practitioner, and something that the 12 steps are wonderful in the moment. The first step is
Mm,
the more important one for the 12 the steps. That is admitting that you have a problem. When you admit you have a problem, that's when you can work with the problem that you admitted.
yeah.
And but programming yourself that you are something, alcoholic, drug addict, whatever it is, what it makes you, it is you drink one drop of alcohol, you're going back again in that spiral again.
Mm,
And that's why I don't completely agree in the 12 and the program, the full program, because it is accepting a belief
yeah.
that you are not healed for the rest of your life. When you can have a drink later on, and that doesn't mean the alcohol control you. But in those kind of programs, the alcohol still control you, even if you stop drinking 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And uh, and that's why I ask you because I have talked with different people that have stopped drinking, drinking or doing drugs or whatever. They were addicts before, and some of them they did the inner work, and some of them they went with these kind of programs. And my question for all of them it is the same as when I ask you, do you still an addict to this day, or you just overcome that addiction to substitute that need?
I've overcome that addiction. I have other ones. I can get stuck in social media. Um, it's part of that process. If you do not, as you said, if you do not do the work, all you're going to do is swap. You're going to swap alcohol for cigarettes. Or what very commonly happens is people go on to smoking marijuana or weed, and then, that's fine. I smoke weed. It's okay. Nah. But it's everybody's own journey. I want to step back very quickly. AA works. AA, NA, 12-step programs work. They keep people surviving. I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. So that's another reason I left it behind because I want to survive. I want to thrive now.
And you went into shamanism. That's something that I read, right?
Mm, yeah.
Can you tell us that process? It
It
was
was
fun.
part of doing the inner work. I mentioned earlier that I was judgmental. I was very judgmental, and I was right and you were wrong because I was right and you were wrong. Just that simple. Um, and I decided to play a game. And Monica, it was a fad game. I would go right. I will listen to anybody. I won't judge them. I'll listen, providing there's three or four rules. If they don't push it down my throat, so they're not selling me, it's not snake oil, then they believe it, they embody it, and maybe they even use it within their work or in their lifestyle. And so I did that, and I got chatting to a psychic medium. I mean, I got brought up Christian, so psychic mediums were devil. They were not okay. But I got chatting to this person, and the more we talked, she loved being able to be connected to spirit. She was intuitive, she was kind, she used her skills to help other people. So she ticked all those boxes. So just because she did things differently and thought differently doesn't mean she was wrong. Um, and through her, I met shamanism, and that was like coming home, Monica. That was literally like I remember this. Um, And that's how it was to me. It was like having a door being held open, say, "Come on home." And it was magical. The connection with nature. I reconnected with nature. I found some shamanic guides. A lot of inner work. The I do Celtic shamanism. A lot of that's about inner work, about lining your cauldrons, which is the same as your chakras. And it was is powerful, beautiful, gentle, scary. You've still got to do the work and realize that, the alcohol was masking beliefs, was masking stuff I didn't know how to deal with. And with the shamanism, I'm working through those things. But it really was a sense of there is beauty everywhere. There is God everywhere. I am God. You are God. We are all spirit. We are all eternal. And this just made sense. It's not up here. This thing goes, what the hell? But this thing isn't in control anymore. They line up the heart, the brain, the heart, and the gut. Um, they're getting more aligned, and when that happens, it's I know it. It's not a belief; it's a knowing and a feeling. And shamanism is it for me. Might not be for everybody, but it is for me.
Yes, I am a Celtic shaman, so a priestess. So I get
You get me? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
you.
beautiful, isn't it? It is gentle, but it is also it doesn't take no nonsense. You've got to do the work. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And it is the natural laws in a way that we're following. That is not something human made. It is just understanding the natural laws that they are all around everybody,
Yeah,
and a deeper self-respect at the same time.
absolutely. And from that self-respect and from that self-love, you stop being codependent. You start to put up boundaries. You stop taking nonsense from people. You start to stop being a victim. You start to take your agency back. You start to live, and as I said earlier, you start to thrive. And then you're able to help other people because you are empowering yourself. No, it's something I wish I'd learned a long time ago, but it's just part of life, isn't it? You don't meet these things until it's the right time, unfortunately. Hmm.
That is so true. And do you work with people? You were telling me that you work with men mainly.
Yes, I like to work with men because women have a lot of support. Women look after themselves. Women are good at talking. And men aren't really. We don't talk to people. We bottle it all up. We keep on going. Well, that was my narrative. I'm fine until I wasn't. Until So yeah. So I work with men, and it's just a conversation. Why do you need alcohol? Why do you need this? I mean, that's the short version, but it's looking at what is important, what isn't working, why isn't it working? But it's also not coaching. It's empowering. I liken it to having a torch, walking along the road at night, and look, there's a lump. There's a lump, and if you don't have a torch, you're going to trip over stuff. So it's a that's what I am. I'm a light for people to carry on their journey. Just give them a bit of an impetus and say, look, maybe have a look at that. Have a look at that.
That is so true. And something that I was talking the other day with my husband, it was about the men are so programmed in so many ways more than women.
Mm,
Women, we are sad, we're gonna start crying, or we feel any emotions. We can when we ask someone else, how do you feel? We usually wouldn't say, what do you think?
mm,
And in the case of the men, that's the issue that I see that they were since they were little. It's like men don't cry, men should not act like this, men should not be emotional. Maybe men should not be showing their emotions. So they learn how to bottle it up.
mm.
And many times comes out in addictions because they try to submerge that emotions that they were never have the permission to talk about.
Mm. It's
right?
absolutely, and that's the tragedy. I mean, we were not allowed to express anger growing up, um, and rage, and basically any powerful emotion. It just, go to your room, do not come back until you stop being angry. 2 minutes later, I'm fine. No, you're not. All that kind of stuff. Um, and that's just what it was. That's I can't blame my parents for that. That's the narrative they had. It just goes back from the generations, and depending on your society, your religion, your ancestors, it's what you got brought up with. So it's not. There's no point judging because blaming doesn't help. You just have to realize that it's okay to feel. Anger is a powerful, powerful emotion for focus. So is rage. Just thumping somebody isn't okay, but use it differently. We're allowed to use these emotions. They're there, they're messages.
That is so true. And how do you find the self-forgiveness for yourself with because when we are in addictions, I also been alcoholic in my past and I overcome it in the way I was mentioning earlier in your work. But and the self-forgiveness, it was one of the clues for me. It was a big one for me. And I bet for every single person that is in addiction, any kinds of addictions, there is a lot of self-forgiveness. It doesn't matter even if you're a workaholic.
Mm,
You're gonna need to forgive yourself for many things that you miss.
yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
I I've mentioned earlier that everyone does the best that I can. I met that's a Brené Brown thing. And first time I heard it, nah, rubbish. I didn't do the best I could. Of course I could have done better. And I should never have thrown bottles out of the car. Should never have been horrible. Never done that. And the way she phrased it, it's just like, well, if you're only able to do 20%, you're still doing 100%. It's just behavior. So I realized everything I had done was the best that I could. Doesn't mean it's okay. From that, I was able to go, right, well, now Hamish now knows better or knows differently. So I cannot judge Hamish then for that. As I said earlier, you cannot tick off a 2-year old for not being able to run and walk. It evolves as a 5-year old it can do. So it's exactly the same thing. I'm now a little bit older, a little bit wiser. So I was able to go, well, what I was doing then wasn't okay. I'm going to forgive myself both ways. So younger Hamish had to forgive older Hamish for being horrible to younger Hamish because I'm very good at beating myself up. But I just had to. There was nothing else I could do. I could only forgive myself if I wanted to get beyond that stuckness. If I'm not going to forgive myself, if I'm going to keep myself guilty, oh, I should have done that. I feel so guilty. If I was going to shame myself, I would be back drinking or dead by now. I had to move forwards and I had to forgive myself. And I realized that every time I did, I was able to, just let go of old stuff. And basically it's almost like clearing out a cupboard so I could put new stuff in because otherwise it was just full of hate and shame and regret and stuff that was in the past and I can't do anything about. So I can either carry it with me or let it go. And over time I let it go.
And learning to love yourself. I find out to a lot of the self-forgiveness was more that I learned to love myself and honor and respect myself. It was easier to do that back to the world at the same time and forgive myself for the mistakes that I have done in the past. It helped me a lot to learn to love myself. And that's what it creates the big changes in all the human beings,
Mm.
right?
No, absolutely. As when you do forgive yourself, you just get a lightness and you're able to move forwards. As you said, you're able to start loving yourself because you've just thrown away all that clutter. you can't change the past. I cannot change what I did in the past. So I can either beat myself up for it, feel guilty, carry that with me, or go, well, I'm just not going to do it again. And that's okay. An apology without a behavioral change is a lie. And damn it, I'm not going to drive again drunk. I'm not going to do this or that. So I'm changing my behavior. And that is good enough for me. If somebody else wants to persecute me for my past, that's on them. That's not on me. I've forgiven myself because it's in the past.
And about the shame, I feel that every time, not I feel, is actually I know that every time that we actually talk about our more shameful moments, it loses the power completely over us. Because, yeah, you want to judge me for
Yeah.
what I was or what I did or something like that.
Mm,
And I already telling you
yeah.
that what I did. And then it is on you. I don't care. Because if we're willing to talk about the shameful moments openly, it doesn't have any more power over us.
No, no.
So
As
that
soon as you start talking about shame, it just goes because you're exercising it. I was told it's like opening windows in a dark room. Just lets the light in. The shame is the dark. It just cannot exist. Yeah.
that is so true. So, do you have a process how you work with men, or if someone that has an addiction and is willing to start observing? Because at the beginning they're very close. They don't have a problem. That's the problem of someone else. That's how they see it.
Mm.
What would you tell to these men that they know it inside of themselves, but they're not willing to still accept they have a problem?
That that is the problem. Until you're able to put your hand up or admit to yourself that you have got a problem, I can't do anything. I happily chat to people, but if you're in denial, that's just as far as it goes. As I said, I've got a quiz on my website where people can look at that, but you've still got to answer honestly. But it does allow you to think, how often do I drink? Do I drink to numb? Do I drink to cope with things? So that allows people to sort of join the dots a little bit. Um, but the conversation, it starts off with a conversation and just like, well, I did it. So it starts with telling my story and the reasons, and then going, you're a hero. You found a way to stay alive. Don't consider your addiction as shameful. It kept you alive. It will not for long if you don't stop or change. So, maybe it's time. So it starts with that, starts with looking at, you're a hero, you found a way to survive. It's going to kill you unless you stop. A crutch does not last forever. And then, go from there. Um, no judgment, no shaming, of course. Um, and it is a reframing. It is a reframing why you did things, looking at things, beliefs. Commonly, it's beliefs, parental, society, that kind of thing. But until you question anything, you believe it is up here. And it's in this reality inside of your head. It's not the reality that you touch, breathe, swim, taste. It's a reality stuck in your grey matter, which is just corrosive. So it's just becoming aware and curious. And that's the conversation. That's how it starts. And then we just go from there. We just chat and there's tricks, there's tools, there's conversations, um, accountability and things like that.
That is so true. It is mainly the shadow work, understanding that if you're not living the life that actually you want, and you're starting to affect people that you love,
Mm.
maybe you have a problem. It might not be alcohol, it might be any kind of addiction to exploding or to be aggressive or getting the triggers, whatever it is. Those attitudes also can be addictive.
Yeah. No, I mean that's the problem with society at the moment. It's so polarized. Social media, gaming, as you said, workaholic, gym, anything basically that you do to try and numb or remove the necessity of having to deal with it, but it's causing you damage is unhealthy, is an addiction. It's too there's too many things out there we don't actually realize are.
So you have the questionnaire in your website that is going to be in the description of this interview. So like that, you can go and check it out. But more than you are on it, you can lie to everybody. But the issue is when you're trying to lie to yourself, you're going to continue repeating the same mistakes. So that's when you have to be very, very honest with yourself if you want to create a different life experience. So we invite you to go and check that questionnaire in Hamish website that is going to be down below in this video. So like that, you can go and be honest with yourself if you want to create a change. So Hamish, and after they answer the questionnaire, how do you work with them?
I'm sorry, say again. How do
How do you work with them after they answer the questionnaire and they say, okay, yes, I have an issue.
on the website then there's a chance to have a conversation with me, a free call just to connect and see whether, you like me, that's quite important. I like you, that's very important. Whether you are actually committed now or later. Um, and it's there's no obligation. It is purely, hey, yeah, sounds like it. You know, I had a problem. I asked. It's not making it into a big deal. It's not hellfire and damnation. It's just like, yeah, it's a new awareness. It's as simple as that. The scary bit is, you drive home drunk that following night. You get a DUI if you're lucky. You hit a tree if you're not so lucky. That's the problem. If you're going to continue, it is a risk. That is the only problem with the drinking, the drugs, workaholic, the risk of heart attack, you name it. That's why it's not safe at the end of the day. That's why you really have to put your hand up and go, hey, I need some help. And it's okay to ask for help. It really, really is.
And that's only about driving. We were talking about a families, about a wife or a kids that you're damaging because you're not in self-control. And those things, if you don't care too much about yourself, just stop and think about the other people that you like, that you love in your life, because we affect everybody. My dad was alcoholic, a functional alcoholic. So that's something that we saw, that he stopped drinking when his liver stopped working. So it came with affect the whole family, even if he was a very functioning alcoholic. So
I think there's a really important point there. I went to rehab not for me. I did not go for me. I went to rehab to try and get my relationship sorted, to get sober up, clean up, detox, and then go back to my normal life. So I didn't do it for me. Um, and when I was talking to my counselor, she said, well, why are you here? And I said, I'm here to get my relationship back on track and this, that, and the other. And she said, well, are you doing this for you? And I said, I don't matter. It's not about me. And she said, well, maybe you should. Maybe you do matter. Um, and that's when I changed it from I did this for somebody else to I did it for me. So you can do it for somebody else. The narrative out there says you can't. People say you can't. You can do it for anybody, so other people. You can start to sober up for your children. I've had people on my podcast who did it for their kids, their spouses. So you can do that. Do it for somebody else. If you think you are so shit you don't deserve nothing, do it for somebody else. And in that process, you will begin to realize that you're actually all right. You're a nice person. You've just got a bad habit. Um, and as you said, if you're going to be on that self-destruct, you will your family, your friends, your business, your relationships, everything. Is it really, maybe you can do it for everybody else and then start for yourself because your life's worth it.
That is so true. Hamish, it's been my pleasure to have you on my podcast. I really, really appreciate it. His information is going to be down below in this interview. So, hey, just check yourself and be honest with yourself when you're filling that application because you might find that everybody has some kind of addiction. It can be to food, it can be to work, it can be to cigarettes, it can be to whatever it is. That sometimes that's our crutch to moving forward. So if you want to actually moving forward without those crutches, we should be honest with ourselves and stop limiting us. There are so many, everybody has limiting beliefs. No one is free of that. Not what our ancestors were free of that neither. So, and we pass it on to future generations because this is transmitted, any addictions, to future generations. Epigenetics talks about this. So, if you want to create a change for you and the future generations, you have to start today with you. So, thank you so much, Hamish, for being in my podcast.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I've enjoyed chatting with you, and it's been lovely to have this conversation.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being in my podcast. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and leave us a comment and share it with your friends. Maybe someone is in need to hear this. Thank you so much for being in Soul Talk. My name is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love.